I don't know how to test, 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 test. Microphone, I think is working, not certain. Yeah, it does
also
look
looks
clearer.
yellow.
Yeah, it looks like it's got a yellow kind of pink
Like
to
a
it.
human.
Admitting people, I'm gonna run down the hall real quick, get some water and such. So. Spotlight. Meantime, we're gonna say. All right. Next. BRB. I'll be right back. I had a bathroom break. I don't know which one that's supposed to stand for. I figured it out whenever I used to text people. And that's not the kind of thing you inquire about. Like it's not appropriate. Be right back.
You should have seen him last semester.
Then he's gonna walk back with footage and hear it.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10, 11, 12, 13. Admit all. All right. How big is this? Yes, that worked. today's question. First, we'll have not directly criminal law discussion, but then we'll move into criminal discussion. First, we need to focus on. What do you want to do? And I don't mean that like as in a class, with your life. Maybe career. Like if you think about the future, where is it you see yourself? What is it you see yourself doing? Like that's. We'll say you're somewhere probably between second semester and last semester of your undergraduate degree, right? Because you can't take this class unless you've had intro. So that means really only need about one semester worth of classes before you can find yourself in here if you want to be at minimum, right? Maximum, this is your last semester here. You're about ready to go and figure out this question right here, right? What does that look like for you all? Well, is it scary? Scary. That one I hear a lot. Hell, half the time it's scary for me whenever I think about it. It's like, ooh, what does that market look like? Ooh, that's rough. The reason why I'm asking that is I want you to be thinking about that. It's like that could be a solution to that problem. It could be graduate school that leading to career. It could be I need to pick a career and go into it, that kind of thing. This should be what's driving you. It's like anytime I see students like not that I'm having this problem in any of my classes, right? Because I'm really not doing really well in terms of attendance, but like it's probably more noticeable in smaller classes where you have a student who will just start, all of a sudden will just kind of drop off. Anytime that I've seen that happen, usually there's some type of like life pressure on them, that kind of thing, whether it's school itself, work, life, something, life. It does all kinds of crazy things. This right here, if they've got a solid answer for this, I've noticed repeatedly the amount of time before I see them back in the class, much, much smaller. Why is that? You know what? I just realized I can't see the chat. If anybody's chatting on here. If you guys want to chat, let's chat for a minute because I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the stuff we're doing. The problem is it doesn't let me increase chat text size. So if I can see it pop up, but I may struggle to see it. So if you need to say something, go ahead and turn on audio if you want to. The reason why I asked this question is, I see my notes from earlier. We just did this. It was excellent. So we didn't have class last time. Did I send an announcement for that? I know I mentioned it in class. Did I send an announcement for that too? I don't think I sent an announcement. I know I had a few people email me, but since I was multi-state traveling for days, it's like access to email is a little bit limited and I was already swimming, so I didn't get back to you until probably yesterday. So if you sent emails, apologies. I should have sent that out beforehand. And it's just time. Time's a very limiting factor. That rule applies to you all as well. It's like this question right here, that clock's ticking. Start thinking about that now. Some of the ways that I've seen people resolve this, just one. So we just got back from SWAC-J. We got back on Friday afternoon. We went to, this one was in Little Rock. So SWAC-J, Southwestern Association of Criminal Justice. It's one of many bodies that we have. This is the Southwestern region, so you're talking 6 states. That's Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Alabama, a few others. I think the furthest north I saw was North Dakota. I don't know if they're part of it. I need to go look back at it with the state listings because it could be they're part of it, or it could be that person was in it but moved universities, because that sometimes happens. It's very rare. But anytime you see directions, if you guys want a funny question to think about directions, is Italy Eastern or Western Europe? It's a wild question. Why would I ask that? Technically, most people would say Western. If we're talking about culture, if you look at it in terms of the map, it's East. Why? It's to the east of Greenwich. Meaning someone just drew an arbitrary line and said, okay, that area is east, this area is west. They kind of do that with these things too. If you look at the cities, you'll see that. At this, we had 3 students. 2 were presenting, 2 were competing in things, course, one of them was doing both. In that, we get to present our findings that we're finding in terms of research to experts, academics, practitioners for 6 states, right? Also students too. So everybody who's got, whether it's you're talking PhD programs, master's programs, or they're just wanting to get their undergraduates involved, like I'm here. Social networking, looking for a job in one of these fields. Well, if I go to some of these, I get involved, they see the work that I'm doing. Okay. When it comes time for me to get a job, I want to go into one of these fields, and I know people in these fields across multiple states who know me well enough that they'll write a letter of support or recommendation. How easy is that job to get? How much do you stand out from the average person who's applying? Yeah. Starting to see what I'm saying here. Okay. So we present, and actually, so also, here's another thing that's really cool. So the competition thing, that happened kind of informally, that social networking thing, right? Student groups, they're competing, what it was a CSI event. So team CSI event, what it is, you have to go and you have to process a crime scene, right? Most people knew weeks in advance they're going to be competing. They were given information about the event days in advance. Our 2 students found out about it 30 minutes beforehand. One of them was presenting at the same time it started. So that was the reason why they were, in terms of ordering them to start, they were one of the last ones to compete. They won. Half of their people on that team were our people who had no lead time. We're here for other things. Skills that they've acquired in the classes they've had here, they won. See you. That could be any one of you. All you have to do is figure this out. All right. There are many times coming here and talk about this stuff. What I'm doing is trying to gauge your guys' reaction. This is my biggest in-person class. We're missing a few people. I don't know if that's demoralization for missing last class, the fact that fall break's coming up, or it's just that time of year. Right? What I want you thinking about is this. Something you want to do. I don't have to tell you to go do it. I can let you know that there are opportunities available for you to go do it. You just have to take that step. Sort of like walking, sort of like anything, like motivation itself. I can't give it to you. I can't do it for you. I can teach you everything you need to get there, though, if you want to take those steps. And it's not just me, it's everybody in our department, right? Because it's a joint effort. That's what you have to do. Before the semester's over, have an answer to this question. Your future literally depends on it. You might want to do that. Okay? This is one option. Like this one was in Little Rock, this one's close. We can get really involved in this one pretty easily. Nationals are next. I've got a couple students who are going to nationals, Chicago, March. Right? They could do the same thing. Now instead of a 6-state scale, it's 50. Really beyond, because there's going to be international people there too. That kind of thing. In terms of the work we're doing, directly involved with problems they're having today. The research we presented last week was on fentanyl and opioid overdose deaths here in the state. Where are they taking place? What do we need to do in terms of targeting, for prevention, for interventions, help for officers going into the scene, right? How am I responding? If I know that there's been, 80 bottles of Narcan used in this neighborhood in the last 6 weeks, I might want to know that kind of thing, right? Or if there's been 3 deaths right here, yeah, that's kind of things I'm going to want to know. You can save lives with that. That's kind of stuff that you can be doing right now. Answer that question. Depending on how you answer that question, it will take a lot of work. We'll be there to guide you. That's how you make your career. The education is a big part of it. That's why I had the work value, educational value discussion in here. I want you to understand they are the same thing. When you start having real metrics to measure yourself by and you can show it and other people can really easily see it, doors open. Right? And that door you can leave open for the people behind you. Keep thinking about that. That's the big thing I want to tell you guys about today. Is what that means for you in terms of future career outlooks, in terms of maximizing your abilities, seeing what you're really capable of and knowing that it's gonna be far exceeding anything you've really thought about right now. That's this. Right? All of you can do this. How many of you want to? How many are gonna put the work in to do it? That'll define your entire careers in whatever field you go into, no matter what it is. Whether you're talking about this, here, home life, all of those things, just personal relations. All focuses from this. Answer this question. I won't talk about this again for a while. Don't let it leave your minds. If you don't have an answer to this question, you will never be successful. You will also never fail. Failure is okay if you learn. If you fail and you learn, you didn't fail. Do it. Take a step. Be uncomfortable. Yeah, see, I'm awkward. I'm uncomfortable all the time. Get used to it. Sometimes it's kind of fun. That was a lot of fun. Okay. Now that you all are thinking about stuff that matters, we left off with abortion. We had talked about, I think it's about everything we needed to talk about until we get to the statutes themselves. I wanted to get some time to look at this beforehand, but I worked here Saturday. We had some events. It was also some good opportunity to start talking to people, trying to get more of them to get to this path. So I didn't get time to really do that, but we'll do that right now. And it's pretty simple. All right, you want to see something cool. Let's say, here's screen. Guess this will be screen 1 now. Yes, okay. So now you'll see my screen. All right. I want to access Oklahoma state statutes related to anything. How do I find it? Boom. Yeah. Legislation. Yeah, excellent. Good. You guys remember that first assignment. Excellent. Don't forget that. You'll use that again. Also, if you ever find yourself you're having to ask questions or answer questions related to things you can find it pretty easily. Okay, so we're in crimes and punishments. That's Title 21. Is there a way to make this bigger? That looks so small. Yeah. One. Yes, open it. Does that help? I love technology. It finally did it, yes. I love technology. It is something we rely on so much and it works so well all the time. All right, so we were looking at, didn't want to do that, I had one button. Search. Okay, procuring an abortion, 6. Okay. Let's see where it starts at the first thing here. First crime it deals with poisoning, shooting, intent to kill. Provision shall not apply to. Okay, so you have to carve out exceptions. That's one of the reasons why that this is in that murder section, right? When we move into murder, I can start getting into it this class. You're going to see that anything that's not criminalized is going to have some type of exception specifically written out, meaning here are the exceptions. You fall into these things, we cannot charge you. Doesn't mean that they won't, but it means that they should, right? This one, right? You're causing death unborn during a legal abortion, which bring woman consented. Yeah, that's not, you're not in this murder section. Okay, we're gonna look at the next one. Third one. Homicide shall not include illegal. Okay, next one. Procuring. Every person who administers with the intent to thereby prepare the miscarriage of such woman unless the same is necessary to preserve her life shall be guilty of punishment in prison. There's your exception. Right? That- where you run into issues, logistics. What does this look like in terms of if you need to get one, how many steps do you need to go through? Right? How do you make that determination? There's some play in this statute as is to allow for that discussion between parents, doctors, right? If they have the justifications themselves, will they take those steps? Usually, yeah, right? You also have that willful element of it. Some doctors will opt to say no because it may change the law. This is too much liability. I'm not going to, or they may move states, that kind of stuff. There's one exception. And if it doesn't fall under that, you're looking at state pen for 2 years, not more than 5. Next one. Oh, there's not yet that. I guess that's it for here. That act I tried to show you. Let's see if I still have it in here. Say from me to me as the word. Actually, no, I think this was in the drive. Let's try there first. I love these drives, by the way. A whole lot of stuff here. You should be keeping. Oh, here's another bit of advice. If you ever work on anything complex and big papers, anything like that, keep 3 copies. 1 on your computer, 1 in your email, 1 on like a flash drive or something like that. So if you ever lose it, you don't start all the way over. That won't come up for you so much as an undergrad, but if you do decide to go for graduate school, writing theses and things like that, nothing is more demoralizing. You just lost a year's worth of work because you didn't save an extra copy. Right? All right, so I was looking for, because I had in there the act that was passed in New York. I started showing you a little bit last time about how ideology was slipping into the acts that they passed, right? They had determinative statements that are within this act. Here we go. Okay. It's safe. Okay. Access to safe legal abortions, more state legislative fines, as with other. Abortion is one of the safest medical procedures performed in the United States, right? So that's where I'm showing you ideology slipping in there, and that's coming through here. It's like, that's probably not a good thing. Let's look at this a little further. Therefore, an intent. Yeah, they got it. Policy finds that comprehensive reproductive is fundamental component of individual's health. Every individual is pregnant has the fundamental right to choose, carry term, give birth, or to have an abortion. This article. Repealing old ones. Let's see if it gets into homicide, abortion, and related offenses. Okay. Homicide, which means death of a person, unborn for a female has been pregnant more than 24 weeks under circumstances constituting. So there you go. There's one of those. There's their limit. Exception. Under 24 weeks. That's 1. You have to go through each of these things line by line to figure out what those exceptions are. And then you have to determine whether or not there are processes related to them. Right? Sometimes it's all just going to be on the hospital side, which would be the case here largely. Right? You wouldn't have any legal involvement until basically criminal charges start getting filed. By that point in time, you're well after the fact. Some of these, it could be they need approval beforehand before they even consider it. Right? Here, you want to get into more of them. Let's see if they start identifying them. Not entirely. So what that means is after this act, you need to go into that section of their statutes and start reading everything around it until you know exactly what it says pertaining to this subject. Yeah, it's going to have indexing in terms of here are the statutes, here are their topics. They're not going to flow the same between states. They're not going to say the same thing. And everything's going to be a little bit different. Makes it very, very difficult. That's why you need to learn how to navigate this, why you need to learn how to read it. And you will actually need to read some of these things. I'm not going to make you read all of this one or do all of that. Okay. In terms of that discussion, what else do I have to tell you about? Everything we talk about leading up to it is identifying cultural drivers for why we're at where we're at, why the decisions being made the way they are, and the discussions that are being had in the way that they're being had. Those will shape through this. From there, I want to show you, not that, downloads. This is 5. What's up to? Let's do if there's anything else new in this I need to talk about. So that's another human being requirement. The definition of death, we hit the inverse of that in terms of life. In terms of death itself, we talked about all of those circumstances, all the different ways we measure life, and how those can be selected for different ways to identify when people recognize that life has actually begun. Okay. Oh, where's that put us? Having a script, but honestly, I don't know. We already talked about multiple causations, the year and a day rule. The year and a day rule, how much did I talk about that when we talked about that time element? Okay, good. Because basically all you need to know from that is that time frame is no longer applicable here because medical. Now it can be 10 years. Beforehand, it's like if you live a year and a day afterwards, like that's not going to kill you because most things are infection, and that's going to kill you pretty fast. Okay. Select I've already talked about. Elements. Okay. Unlawful act or omission committed by a human. Men's ready. You have that intent element. Act must be the cause, legal cause of the victim's death. There's where your corner comes in. Ooh. Fun one. Boys on the track. Bonus reading. Not reading, watching. That's a TV series, documentary. That's about Arkansas. 1980s and 90s for drugs. Boys found dead on a track, cut up into little pieces, right? Oh, they must have fallen asleep on the tracks. No, there's a coroner listing it as a suicide, so there's no death investigation. A lot of that in this documentary. Not just one story, dozens related to corruption. You might want to watch that. Okay. Victim must be a human being. We talked about that. Reasonable time period. Yes. Here we go. The different types that you'll see in different places. Now, not all of these will be seen in all states, but you'll see certain elements of it. It says intent to kill, intent to inflict great bodily harm, depraved heart, commit a felony, murder. So those are all wildly different things that fall under murder and maybe typified, classified in different ways, just depending on whatever the statutes currently take place in that given area. Typically right here, the inflict great bodily harm. Talking essentially the same thing. That's nearly across the board. If you have those types of intents, that's going to be murder. If you're killing someone because they have these types of intents, that's not murder. Why? That's justifiable homicide. Yeah, that's right. If you have justification, you can kill somebody. Depending on how that specific scenario unfolds. Dangerous, very dangerous, right? The depraved part, we'll come back to that because we'll have to talk about premeditation. We'll talk about that and some of the differences because they'll be a little bit different, right? To start getting into the nature of it, rules involved. Intent to commit a felony. Some statutes will write that up as in, okay, you're already involved in criminal pursuits and a death occurs. Guess what? We're going to classify that as first-degree murder. You're responsible for that. Some states do a little bit differently. Arkansas is probably a big example of that one where it's like, this is its own type of murder. This is capital murder is what they put this one up as. So if you're committing a felony and another death occurs, this is actually more serious than if you planned it out and killed somebody on purpose. Right? This one, here in this state, what you're looking at is murder in the first degree. That can be X number of years, life in prison, parole, death penalty, that kind of thing. Arkansas, you have two choices. Really, it's do you convict, and if so, do you give them life or death? They're not coming out ever, right? Murder for hire. We're starting to get back to first degree murder again. It depends on what that looks like. Well, that one's kind of deal with that one a little bit later. Okay, degrees. This is the most common classification. First, second, we already talked about lesser included offenses. You won't find third degree murder. Right? First degree is premeditation, second degree, anything that doesn't require premeditation. If you remember when we were talking about levels of intent, you should try to talk about premeditation by itself, but then we had what were they? Review, good, I like it. It's gonna be at the top because how much you're thinking about it's gonna be a lot more. Thought, maybe planning. Number one, you planned it out really well. Okay. What are other options? You guys don't remember this?
Preparing.
Close. Right? Right? Yeah. Purposefully, knowingly, recklessly, negligent. Premeditated. Purposefully. Right? There's lesser included offenses, so you have murder in the first and second degree. Are we also talking about manslaughter? Heard that word before, right? There's some differences there. We'll get to that in a second, right? All those lesser included offenses, they tend to be charged. You get those big ones. Reason I mentioned that last, I think it was last class, was like, basically what you're doing is you're giving your jury a choice. If we don't hit all the elements for this crime, well, maybe it's this element right here we didn't hit, okay? So maybe both of these are first degree. Maybe this is second degree. Maybe this and this manslaughter, however they have it classified in your specific state, right? Give this one, can I come down here and do this one? Right, well, yeah, I mean, you're firing your gun off in the air and all around, and you're under the influence. Yeah, you kind of know what you're doing, but is that really, or is that more recklessly? And it caused a death, but that's because that bullet sailed a good neighborhood and a half over before it hit somebody, killed them. It's like, you're down here. That kind of thing. They'll make an argument for why it should be here, or maybe even up here. It's all about what the jury believes. To some degree, that's going to be a measure of how good your expensive your lawyer is, right? If they're really good at making people believe stuff, yeah, then you'll walk. I said affluenza. Have you guys ever heard of that? Okay. Do you remember the story about what that was about? Essentially what it was, if you look at it, it'll give you the actual case, but essentially what it was is rich white boy shouldn't be held criminally liable for their criminal actions because they've lived such a good life. They had no idea that this kind of punishment was associated with these actions. They've built a really sheltered life. You should really pay them. Jury bought it. Dude walks. Yeah.
Was it the one where he like was like in a truck full of his friends?
I want to say there were some deaths involved. But you'll get a similar argument from people like, so that one worked. Then a couple of years they tried to use that in a rape case. That was awesome. Yeah. Oh, when we get to sex crimes, that'll be a real fun but very difficult conversation to have. We'll get in that. I think that's the next one we start talking about crimes against people. Yeah, imagine how dangerous those conversations are. But yeah, so it was sex crimes. Basically what he said was the argument when they finally got down to closing arguments, that guy hit the lawyer hit the nail on the head when he said it, but whenever he said it, At that point in time, you're probably gonna throw the jury off. It's that, what he said was, I think it was a he. I don't remember. The accused was a he. We really need to punish this person for years of their lives. This is only 3 minutes behind this restaurant next to the dumpster. Is that what this is? He's got this whole life ahead of him. He's got such a good standing in the community. And all this was 3 minutes. He didn't want. Yay. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah, no, you need to spend the next few years in prison and hopefully you get a few of those moments of yourself to relive, right? Right. Yeah, that's what I'd like. That's justice. That's retribution. Maybe that's probably not the best way to look at that, but at least it's functional in the way that we can deal with crime. From there. Oh. Oklahoma statutes. Homicide defined. Here's how we do it. Any killing of one human by another. Human being does include unborn. Does not include death of unborn during legal abortion with consent or pursuant to usual and customary standards and practice during diagnosis test period. So it's like, okay, you have a complication, you have to take this medicine, you live or die. Odds are baby's not going to survive. Do you get to take that medicine, or does government say, that's a crime, you're going to prison? Right? We need to have that exception in there. Under no circumstances will the mother of the unborn child be prosecuted for causing the death of the unborn child unless the mother has committed a crime that caused the death of the unborn child. That's them trying to deal with the informal ways people do that. I'm only going to say 2 words: coat hanger. Right? You know what I'm talking about. Homicide is classified either as any of these following: murder, manslaughter, excusable and justifiable. We'll talk about the excusable and justifiable in a second. Those are your 2 big crimes, murder and manslaughter. They'll each have different degrees. They'll largely correlate with this. Right? The further down you go, the further you get towards how much their thoughts align with their actions. Almost like you guys what you wanted to do with your careers. And aligning those things would help you out. I've already had that lesson. Proof necessary to the conviction of murder or manslaughter. No person shall be convicted of murder, manslaughter, or aiding suicide, because that's in there too. We talked a little bit about that. There will be some statutes related to that. Unless the death person alleged to have been killed or fact of the killing by the accused are established as independent facts beyond a reasonable. Basically, you just need to hit that standard for other things too. You need this proof left. And if you don't have that proof, you don't get it. Murder in the 1st degree. Unlawfully or with malice of forethought. Okay, to see malice of forethought, you'll see depraved heart. Depraved heart's a little bit different. You're dealing with more of the actions. This is malice. Yes, this is more intent beforehand. Malice is deliberate, intentional, lawful, unlawfully to take away the life of a human being, which is manifested by external circumstances capable of proof. What are they saying there? Yeah. As you're reading this stuff, this will be like that. When you start getting into heavy research, will be like this too. You're dealing with people who write in a way that each sentence is hard to consume. It really is. What the hell are you trying to say? All they're really trying to say here is that to establish whether or not someone had this malice that you need for 1st degree, you look at what you could reasonably take from the external circumstances here. You use circumstantial evidence to establish intent, because you can't get it from them directly most of the time. You're not getting a confession, despite what you see in TV. Those don't happen. They do, but not very often. Okay? Person also commits murder in the 1st degree, regardless of malice, when a person takes another person's life. During the death was a result from commission, attempted commission, murder of another person, shooting, discharge of a firearm, crossbow with intent to kill, discharge of firearm in any dwelling, with this, anything in this section related to these crimes, so it outlines any of the crime, that's where you start getting into capital stuff, right? Some states classify it as capital murder. A murder that occurs during the commission of any other crime, you're held responsible. All of those involved in that crime are responsible. Okay. Here it gives you some exceptions here, because it also has some instances here where it talks about drug overdoses, right? That one's kind of a dangerous one. How do you sort out the people who are distributing drugs to kill versus those who are just distributing drugs?
Like large doses that are.
I don't know. Because that's gonna be individual arguments made at every trial, right? Is it gonna be, it could be the amounts. That will be something that comes up. Maybe it's the type of drug you're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, take that one we were gonna do with those, the fentanyl one. How potent it is, and it's everywhere, right? Is it the fact that it was in your drugs? Is it the fact that you put it in your drugs? Were you even aware of those factors? It's just the fact that you're selling drugs caused somebody's death, right? You're now on the hook for this, maybe. Now you gotta figure that out, right? In the last two years, I wanna say, you've had major movements related to that specific topic on a social front, so much so that major presidential candidates have come out speaking for this in terms of, well, we need to start holding these people responsible. If they are responsible for a death from this, they need to go up for murder. Was that conversation about figuring that question out as whether they're trying to kill people versus just trying to make money? Was that had? No. Big potential problem in the future in terms of proportionality, right? Keep that in mind, because that's gonna be something that's gonna be developing over the next 5, 10, 15 years, maybe more, as more and more drugs come out, right? Fentanyl's a really good fentanyl, whatever it is. Really good example of that because how much it's grown in the last few years. If I said, xylazine, or was it xylene? I can't remember. I think it's like xylazine or something. It's a really weird one. Starts out with this D. It's or X. It's one that's now being introduced into those drugs. Do you know why? Stops opioid antagonists. Meaning that spray of Narcan you get to save your life no longer has an effect, meaning you die. Yeah. Maybe in that instance, because that's kind of clear what that's trying to do. Drug presence in itself, who knows it's even in there when they're distributing. Okay. Controlled substances. Gamma abuse. Trying to remember what that's used for. I used to remember my drug names better. I'd be curious to see what this is related to. If it's related to GHB, that's one of those. Is that the tape break drug? No, that's Rohypnol. GHB is. I'd have to look that one up. But that's another one. So they'll have stuff in there related to that. Such term does not include controlled substances, substance which there's an approved new drug application. So that there are carbon exceptions there. Okay. Person commits first degree murder, cause death of child, same kind of thing. Torture your kids and they die. That's still first degree murder. Even if it's not deliberately trying to take away alive, we're going to treat it the same. Maybe you like that, maybe you don't. Person gets murdered in the first degree, person unlawfully malice forethought, solicits a person to cause another person. There you go. It's not just murder for hire, it's you too. Right? It wouldn't have happened, but for your actions, that's you. Person commits murder the first degree, that person intentionally caused the death of the law enforcement officer, correctional officer, in the performance of their duties. Right? Get pulled over by police. He steps out of the vehicle. Your window's down. He reaches for your keys. You're gonna run. You step on the gas. He gets hooked up in the car. He gets pulled a few feet, gets pulled in the traffic, gets run over. Yeah, that's murder. Good job. That kind of thing. Those are the types of things trying to account for in each one of these lines. If it doesn't fit, you can't charge with that crime. So they got to make sure it's all in there. That's why it gets so complex so fast. Murder in the second degree. when perpetrated by an act imminently dangerous to another person, as we get the depraved mind, convincing of the depraved mind. Basically, what you're doing is so dangerous that you're showing that you don't care. You have a complete disregard for dangers you're presenting. Okay. Also, if you're committing a felony and you don't get murdered in the first degree, that's another option. Punishments. The guilty nolo contendieri. Did we talk about? I don't think we talked about that yet. Maybe we didn't. The different types of pleas you can make. We'll have to have a conversation about that sometime. There's some really cool ones. If I said Alford plea, do you guys know what I'm talking about? I've heard the name. It's like sometimes those things have some really, really big implications. For example, if I said, I think it's the Alford, I want to double check it. It's like you can plead guilty to a crime here. The reason why you do that, civil suits. Normally, if you are found guilty of a criminal action, someone wants to sue you civilly, they don't even need to have a trial. They had one on the criminal side, it has a higher standard. We're going to use that one, right? One of those other pleas, now you still have to have a trial. Do you want to go through that whole process? How many people am I going to inhibit going through that process because it's going to take so long? That's why you might do that. I feel like if I said something was dismissed with prejudice. You guys ever seen that phrase before? Dismissed with prejudice? Okay. I'm just kidding, so I'll talk about that in a bit. If you ever see that, usually it's more on the front end, you've not made it even trial. Sometimes it can happen when we go to trial. When you see something dismissed with prejudice, that means it's dismissed. Usually when you have a dismissal, you can have a retrial. When they say prejudice, that means the judge is coming to a conclusion on it, meaning there are no potential possibilities for future charges on those actions. Anytime you see dismissed with prejudice, where you've probably seen it, if you've seen it anytime recently in the last 5 years, from 2020 to 2021 related to anything related to protests and riotous behavior. Hundreds, thousands, really, individuals dismissed without prejudice. That leads to its own problem, which kind of already is, but that's a different discussion. Okay. Designed to affect death inferred. Yeah, you can infer that from the circumstances. Premeditation. How long do you need for it to be premeditated? The best laid plans of mice and men, right? You can have a great plan to go nowhere. It can take you somewhere really, really far. You can poorly plan something and end up somewhere too. That's this one. The reason for that, trying to make that distinction here, right? What's the difference between the murder that I planned over the course of 3 weeks and the murder it took me 30 seconds to plan? Where I'm at in my head, where I'm at in terms of my actions, are they really that different? Facts are the same. We handle it the same. Anger and intoxication. Nope, not a defense. Here's what goes a little bit more about that. The act itself can be enough to say that you've got the depraved mind. I'll give you some examples. That gets a little nasty, so we're not going to do that. No, don't want there. Over here. That's where that discussion of physician-assisted suicide comes up. We've already had that discussion, so we're not going to get too heavy with it. Just know that it varies. What is it here? Completely illegal. Manslaughter. 2 types, voluntary and involuntary. Kind of start getting here, right? How much can you control? How much can you not control? How much should you have known you should have been able to? Heat of passion, basically what you're talking about there, those are the reaction ones. In terms of how they're handled, they do tend to, I don't want to say favor the accused, because that's not what it is. To some degree, people can understand this one, right? You're given a certain situation. I'll give you one where there wasn't, I can't remember if there was charges on this one or if it got even to trial. Texas dad goes into the bathroom because his daughter's been taking too long, finds a child molester in there with his daughter. Beats him nearly to death. Yeah, no charges at all. If I go back, probably the biggest one because it was caught on national news, aired live. There was one in, I want to say it was late 80s. Basically what happened was, it was family, one of their sons was, I can't remember if it was sports or if it was like boxing or martial arts or something.
Karate. It was karate.
Coach was a child molester, had been grooming this kid for years, took him off, abducted him, right? Police do their job, get him back. Husband's a smart guy, he's pissed off. It's like, okay, well, that means you're gonna be at this location on this day in this airport. I'm gonna be there undercover, right? And so you literally can find video of, okay, here's the perp being walked by a police officer. He's walking by telephone booths because they still have those up in the airport. Right? Dude in the hat and glasses turns around, boom. No more pedophile, right? Right there on live TV. I can't remember if they actually charged him or not. I know he was not convicted of anything, and I know if you ever interviewed him to this day, if he's still alive. I know if he's dead. The last time we were talking about it, he was still happy about killing that guy, right? Everyone there accepted. Is it this or is it excusable, justifiable? We'll get into that next time. Yes.
See, doesn't that kind of blur the line? You said earlier that anger is not a defense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It definitely blurs the line. It's not a defense, but if people understand it and they agree with it, they won't hold you guilty. Yeah, it's like it's the flip side of can you well, I guess it's kind of the same thing. Can you convince people to believe? If so, the leniency that you'll get will increase. Your standing, the likelihood that you'll get away with it increases, if that's what you're trying to do. All right. With that, we'll pick up with that next time. You guys have fun?
Yeah.
Okay. Remember the important question. What do you want to do? You want to get involved and do more, let me know. We're working on that. Have a great day. All right, stop share. If you guys are still here, I will see you next time. Adios.